Right, my name is Patrick Lauke. I work for Opera Software and make browsers. I'll start by saying that I've been down with a cold for the last week, so excuse me if I start coughing halfway through my talk. And being a smoker probably doesn't help, as many of you can attest from being outside with me. Right, we're going to have a little chat about HTML5 and specifically about audio and video support in HTML5. Ian Hickson, the editor of the HTML5 spec, at some point said that the idea behind HTML5, the kind of the raison d'etre of HTML5 is to extend the language that web browsers support, particularly for web applications, and to put HTML, pure HTML, in direct competition with things where at the moment we have to use things like Flash or Silverlight, various kind of plugin based technologies. So, going to have a quick whirlwind tour of video and, to a smaller extent, audio, since they're very similar in essence. So, at the moment, if you want to put video on your website, I mean, there have been a few solutions over the years. Who remembers Real Player? Things like, right, isn't it? We'll have a therapy session about that later. And I don't know if you use Microsoft-specific kind of streaming technologies. You can embed like video using the plugin there. But far and large, Flash is really kind of the technology that's kind of dominating the web as it stands today. Things like YouTube, various other kind of sites. If you want to embed video in your websites, pretty much at this point, you're likely to be using something with Flash. And you have to battle with beautiful code like this. This is, if you go to YouTube and go embed, this is basically what gets regurgitated back at you. This is kind of cargo code. You grab it, you don't try to understand it. You wouldn't want to write it by hand, but if you do, well, good on you. But basically you take this kind of stuff. It's an object, it's also got a fallback embed in there, loads of parameters. You don't really quite understand how it works, you don't really care about it, you grab it, you put it in your pages. Not the nicest way to go about things. Now back in 2007, at Opera, we actually, as we were already working with the WhatWG at the time, we said, hang on, how about we do the same thing for video that we do for things like images. For images, we've got a simple tag. Wouldn't it be great if we had the same kind of approach for video as well? Video on the web and audio on the web are very kind of commonplace things nowadays. Why can't we have something as simple as that, what we do for images, for video as well? So it was proposed, there was kind of a basic implementation done back in the day. And the end result is that now HTML5, as most of you probably know already, has support for video and audio. So if I wanted to actually write, embed video in my pages, add some video to my pages, I don't have to think about doing anything like that. But it's actually quite straightforward. It's a video element, you open and close it. You point it to the source, where is the video file itself, so all very similar to images. You can do width and height, various other things. You can say the browser should provide its own controls, so you can add the controls attribute, and every browser, it will look slightly differently, but every browser kind of chooses how it styles the play button and the seek bar and everything else. You can say, I want this video to autoplay. It's obviously evil to do that if you go to a page, but if you have, say, something very specific, you've warned the user before, the reason for that page that you're, say, visiting is mainly to play the video, fair enough, you can set it to autoplay. And you can also set things like a poster frame, so that the video doesn't start automatically, it loads an image, and then the user actually presses that image, and then the video starts playing. You can also, because it's got an opening and closing tag, you can also put fallback content in the middle, so if somebody comes along with a browser that doesn't currently support native video playback, you can show them something else. At the very least, a little link to say, okay, well, your browser doesn't support it, but you can at least download the file and play it offline with some other media player that you might have. I forgot to start my clock. Oh my God. So what this brings us is basically video as a native object. It's no more a plugin kind of feature. It's not like cryptic code that you put in your page. It's basically just like having an image in your page. And there's a few advantages to that. First of all, and we'll see a few examples in a second, it plays nice with the rest of your page. The browser itself is in charge of actually rendering the video, reserving the space on the page, playback of the video itself, seeking, starting, stopping, and everything else. The browser actually understands what's going on in that particular space. What happens normally when you use something like plugin-based technologies is all the browser knows is, okay, there's an object here. The browser reserves a bit of space there in its little drawing of the page and hands off control of that part of the page, the rendering, whatever happens there, any events like mouse clicks or keyboard access once you're focused in it, it hands it off to this, on Windows it will be a DLL, some separate kind of file, and basically whatever comes back from that, it just kind of puts it back in that reserved space. The browser itself normally when you use plugins doesn't actually know what's going on, it's a black box as far as the browser is concerned. With video as a native object, the browser itself understands what's going on in that space, and it can also draw certain kind of parameters from it, which we'll see in a second as well. And it basically has more control over what's happening in that part of the page. One of the things that I mentioned already is, say, keyboard. If you're using a plugin in, I think, pretty much every browser except for Internet Explorer at the moment, even if you're, say, let's take Flash as an example, even if you make your Flash movie itself keyboard accessible, so you go through all the correct ways of building your Flash, making sure that users with keyboard can actually tab between controls and everything else, there's still a problem when you go there with anything other than IE on a page that has Flash embedded in it. The user might be able to move across your page, tab from link to link, etc. But usually there's no way for that user to then, with the keyboard, jump into your Flash movie, and once they're inside the movie, jump back out. Unless developers put a lot of extra effort into it with scripting, with various hacks to kind of make that happen. Again, with video being kind of a first-class citizen on the web page, and the browser understands it, that problem is basically removed, because the browser can treat it like any other object. It knows about the play button and the seek bar and everything else, and it can actually include it in the normal kind of tab order that you'd get. And now, seamlessly, which never happens, jump into the browser just to give you a basic idea. And Big Buck Bunny, for those who've been playing with video, you'll be sick of this stuff, because this was one of the first videos that people used as demos. I'm sick of it as well. Beautiful. So, just to give you an idea, I'm going to tempt the gods of demo. It's just a simple page, and I've just included a little video element there, controls. I did set autoplay, but I've already visited that page and stopped it. Poster frame, etc. And what we get here is the absolute basics of a page with a video element. That's currently the poster frame that's being shown. If I move my mouse over it, as you see, Opera in this case pops up the little controls at the bottom. Other browsers may choose to show them already. They might look differently. As I said, that's all part of the browser UI. The browsers themselves can choose how they show these things, whether they fade them in or pop them up, whatever. And then I can just play. I haven't got sound on here because you don't need it. And I can just go through, and this is basically the browser itself playing the video. Nothing new. It's got a few options as well built into the browser, so you can actually copy the video address, save the video, all the things that the major Hollywood studios are worried about. Beautiful stuff. And as I mentioned, I'm going to use spatial navigation here in Opera, which is using Shift and then the cursor keys, lets you go up, down, left, right. Hopefully, if this all works out. Yeah, I can basically, here I am, I've got the focus on the link outside of the video, but just with a keyboard I can actually go and move myself onto the pause play button. I can jump on the seek bar. I can't remember the combination. I think I need to take control. Leave that for now. I can also do volume, up, down, all that stuff. All without any extra effort on my part. I just put a video in there and it's instantly keyboard accessible. Other browsers at the moment, they're not 100% in terms of being able to get there with a keyboard, but we're all working towards it. So that's one of the big benefits in my mind of, in the accessibility case, using video as a native object itself. And now, seamlessly, can I remember which one it is? It might be this one. Yay! There we go. Oh, hang on. Also, apart from keyboard access, because it's basically like any other element that the browser understands, I can also do quite funky things like, the order's completely messed up here. This again is a video element, but I've now added a few more things to it. I've added some CSS3 transitions. And again, because it's like any other part of the page, the browser can deal with it kind of on hover, transition it to a different size. I can change it, I can change the opacity of it. Basically, as if it was any other normal HTML element. So obviously it can play, and while it's playing, you can still do crazy things with it with CSS, or you could have JavaScript doing stuff. You could change like stacking order, you could put some extra kind of stuff over it with CSS. All very simple. You don't have to really worry about it. One of the problems previously with things like Flash, as I said before, it reserves the part of the page for the plugin, and if you don't do anything else, the plugin itself actually sits right on top of anything you've got in your page. So one of the classic kind of problems that you always saw questions about on mailing lists is, oh, I've got a Flash video here, I've just embedded some YouTube here, and I've got, say, a menu, a pure CSS menu, but it sits behind it. And no matter what I try, I do CSS index kind of things with it, it always seems to fall behind the actual Flash itself. Similar problem if I've got Flash on my page, but then I use something like a lightbox script that maybe pops something up. A lot of the lightbox scripts kind of compensate for that by removing Flash elements or display nunning them. Is that a verb? I'll make it a verb. Before they actually show the overlay that goes on top. All because the plugin itself is basically just reserving that space. Yes, there is a workaround in the particular case of Flash. I'm not sure if there is something similar for, I don't know if anybody still embeds Java, hope not, or things like Silverlight, those three people that use it. You can, in Flash, you can set something called the W mode, the window mode of the Flash movie, set it to transparent, and then magically you can actually do that. Beautiful, isn't it? However, that's got various kind of repercussions, accessibility problems. Screen readers don't report that there's a Flash movie anymore, and even if it's accessible, it doesn't work anymore. It's a bit hacky. It's a hacky way of doing it, and certain things still don't quite work. So if you have things like you want to resize it or you want to change the opacity, it still doesn't work 100%. Still, because the plugin itself is just delegated to draw that particular area. Now, let me see. As I said, with this kind of stuff, it's the browser doing the drawing. I could put anything else on top of it. I can layer 2 or 3 videos if my machine is powerful enough, which this one isn't. Have them playing at the same time, change the opacity of them. All of those problems disappear because basically it's like anything else in your HTML. There we go. Obviously, video, it's a nice idea. Let's just put a tag in there, put an element in our pages, and we'll have video in all the modern browsers. Wonderful. Unfortunately, as ever, reality isn't quite as simple or straightforward. There's been, and well, there's still continuing, a big debate about what video formats, the actual codec itself, should browsers support. Because the browser, keep in mind, is actually rendering the video itself. It has to have kind of knowledge of how to interpret the data that's inside the video file, render it, decompress it, and play it. So there's been a little bit of a battle of wills and licenses at the start of when all of this HTML5 stuff happened. And the big kind of camps kind of fell between, there's MP4, yeah, it's not proprietary, it's a patent encumbered, let's say, and royalty encumbered format. It's very common, it's very ubiquitous. If you have, say, I don't know, a flip cam, any of the consumer kind of cameras that do video as well, that's basically what they use. A lot of kind of set-top boxes have got built-in H.264, which is the actual codec, MP4 decoders and everything else. There's a lot of hardware support, iPhones have it and everything else. Unfortunately, as I said, it's patent encumbered and there are royalties involved with it. There's a murky discussion about, but we will never charge users and everything else, but it could actually happen that if you're building a product that wants to decode or encode MP4, you might end up having to pay for it. So the big browsers that do support it, Google Chrome, of course, Safari, because Apple sit on the big licensing pool as well of MP4, and IE, I made my own hacked version in the day, IE9. They now have a new logo. I haven't updated the slides there. It's not very different from the old one, but they will tell you it is. So these browsers support MP4. So if you want to put video in your pages using the video element, you need to encode it to MP4 with H.264. The other camp is Ogg Theora. Some of you may have heard of Ogg Vorbis, the audio format. They did a video format for that as well. It's free and open, no licensing royalties. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good. There are not many tools for it, mainly propeller head kind of tools, command line things, so not very designer or normal kind of human being friendly kind of format. And the actual container itself, Ogg Theora, wasn't that particularly good. It wasn't really optimized for web delivery. It was reasonably good if you ran, say, your video files off your hard drive, but for things like over a network where you might have packet loss or you might want to seek to a different part of the video file later on, it wasn't really optimized for that. It didn't have like various markers in the video file itself. However, it was supported at the start by obviously Firefox. Since it's all open source kind of stuff, Firefox obviously can't go for anything that's patent encumbered and royalty encumbered because their source code is available. They couldn't kind of stick that kind of MP4 decoder into their source. Opera, we supported it as well. Not that in Opera we're against patents. Patents are quite a valuable tool, but it's the royalty aspect that we weren't too happy about. And Google Chrome, interestingly enough, also supported Ogg Theora. So kind of sitting on the fence between supporting both the MP4 and Ogg Theora. So that was the situation a while ago. Then Google, at the last Google I/O, unveiled this project called WebM. It's a new format. It's a new container format for video and a new codec itself. Completely free, open source, lovey-dovey, great stuff. And most importantly, supported by not only these browsers, IE9 is kind of in slightly greyed out because IE basically said we won't support it natively, but if the platform that we're running on has the codecs installed, we'll support it as well. It's web optimized, and compared to Ogg Theora, there's actually industry support behind it. So the likes of obviously YouTube, a big player there, Skype, Java, Android, various other places. Actual tool makers themselves, I think Adobe should be somewhere there as well. They actually said they're going to build in support to encode straight from their big tools like Adobe Premiere, After Effects, etc. to actually make it a bit more designer friendly, so you don't have to actually battle with the command line to do that sort of stuff. YouTube, obviously, when Google announced WebM, they also unveiled that they kind of sneakily and secretly already been doing WebM support before the announcement. So they already, every time somebody, I think in the run up to it, like a month before the announcement, when you uploaded a high enough quality video, they actually encode into WebM format as well. So a lot of people say, oh, why do I have to bother with a separate format? I can't do multiple encodings and everything else. Well, the likes of Google managed to do it. You have to, as a user, still actually actively enable that you want to see HTML5 videos. But then once you go to that page and say, yes, I want to join the HTML5 revolution, Any video you see that's already encoded also in WebM or in MP4, you can actually see it on YouTube as well. So we've got the different video formats. How can we make a page that actually supports video, not just in certain browsers and then make a separate page that supports in other browsers? No. What we can do is, in HTML5, it actually provides you the option to define separate sources for your video. So in the first example, in the simple example, we saw the video element has a source attribute, and there I just pointed to a video file. But if I've got multiple versions of the video in different formats, so in this case, say I'm covering all the angles, I've got WebM, I've got OGG Theora video, and I've got MP4, I can actually create a video element and then just define a fallback list of these are the different sources in there. So a browser that comes along to this page, a browser that's video capable, will go, okay, I'll try the first one. Okay, it's type video WebM. The type attribute is optional. It helps if you add it in there, maybe for your own sanity, but if not, the browser will try and guesstimate from the data that comes in and from the file extension. But you can say, okay, can I play WebM? No, I can't. Oh, I can't play OGG. I'll play the MP4 version. And another browser comes along, goes through the same thing and says, okay, I can do the WebM. I'm happy with that. And you can still provide fallback content for it. And you should, because not everybody, even though we'd like it, is using the absolutely latest version of the browsers. I mean, even at the moment, say Firefox 4, they're still in beta, IE 9, just in beta now, but any users that are still using Firefox 3.6, and you're sending them, say, WebM format, they don't quite understand it. Or IE, any IE6 users still out there, any IE7 users still out there. Unfortunately, in the corporate world, we've still got a lot of them. You can't completely bar them from it. You still want them to see the video. And there's actually a way, using the fallback itself, to cater for both modern browsers that can do native video playback and also providing at least a basic kind of Flash-based video playback for older browsers that don't support it. So there's, on that URL, Video for Everybody, a guy called Croc Cayman came up with a mad idea of, we saw the really horrible kind of object embed stuff right at the beginning. We've seen the lovely kind of video way of doing it in HTML5. Well, he Frankensteined the two together and said, okay, let's have a video object with the various fallbacks, but then inside, as the actual fallback content for browsers that don't do video element, we can actually stick in a Flash player as well. Now, interestingly, Flash has in the later versions native support to actually play external MP4 videos. So if you are doing multiple encodings, you're doing your WebM version, maybe your OGG, although that can fall by the wayside once Firefox 4 is out, and MP4, you don't have to do a fourth version of your file to play in Flash. You can basically just point your player with a bit of action scripting to the external MP4 file. So at least you can use that as a fallback. The MP4 will play in Safari and it will play in older browsers through this kind of Flash player as well. So that was the absolute basics of, we want to get some video play in our page. But the real beauty of the video element and the audio element as well in HTML5 is really that it also provides you a powerful and simple API to start doing things through JavaScript with this video. It's all well and good having the video in the page itself, but you want to actually be able to control it, interact with it, get information out of it. All the stuff that, yes, in a certain way it was possible with a few hacks and a bit of coding using something like Flash, but it required additional work on the part of the developer. As an example of how it used to be, for instance, is Chris Harman from Yahoo. I think he did that in collaboration with a few other people for an Accessibility Hack Day a few years ago. Basically, the YouTube player itself, which isn't particularly accessible, mainly because it's Flash, he actually built an interface over it using HTML and loads of JavaScript and hooking into APIs that the YouTube people actually built into their Flash player. So he actually made, big play buttons and everything else. So somebody with kind of reduced vision can actually get to the page. They get a really kind of obvious kind of play, pause button and everything else. Works well with screen readers. And it basically, there's lots of JavaScript that when you click that, it sends special commands to the actual Flash player that YouTube built. But it only works because YouTube themselves actually added these API kind of functions in there. If you build your own kind of video player in Flash from scratch, you'd also have to build your own API for it and account for it. However, with HTML, that's a lovely slide, you can study that later. However, with HTML5 video, the APIs are a given. It's part of the HTML5 specification. It basically says browsers that implement HTML5 video and audio, basically this is the HTML5 media, HTML media element, of which video and audio are an instance, have these standard things. So whenever you pop in a video or an audio file, you'll have methods and attributes and various events that are fired automatically without any extra work on your part that you need to do. And you can hook into them without having to worry about, has the developer provided an API for it? They all come as part of the browser's support itself. So with those methods that are fairly straightforward, so once you grab a reference to the video, you might do it with get an element by ID or however crazy technique you want to use. They're very straightforward methods like play, pause. You can set the volume or you can read the volume, obviously, they're read-write attributes. You can check what the current time is, or you can actually set the current time to, say, jump to a specific point in the video itself. There's a few more, but those are kind of the absolute basic ones that you need basically to create your own controls. Events, as I mentioned, the video element itself, you can hook into events that will be fired when the video is, say, it's loaded, it's got enough data to start playback. When playback actually starts, either because the user pressed the, I don't know, the play button, or because some other function somewhere in the page triggered the play method. Same for pause. Every time the time updates, every time, you know, as it's playing, there's certain intervals, different browsers implement it differently, but I think it operates every kind of 10 milliseconds or so. An event is fired saying, right, the time of this video has been updated, so you can listen out for that if you want to do specific things at specific times, or you want to update a visual representation of the video is playing. And you can also get events when the video finishes, and a few others. There's very specific ones for handling how the video element, well, the browser handles the video element in terms of going through the various fallback sources and everything else, how much data is being buffered, that sort of stuff. So with all of these that come basically as a given, you can fairly easily create your own video controls. So an absolute basic example would be, here's a video element, and I left the controls, the native browser controls in there. If this was my beautiful production website, obviously I'd not include the controls attribute, so that all the user sees is basically my custom-made little controls, which will win design awards in the future. So simply pressing play, pause, I can change the volume, so just to show you, that's the volume up right at the top, and go down. It fires events when the time updates. As I said, it should be fairly regularly. And all I need, I mean, it looks quite scary because my JavaScript is absolutely atrocious, but all I'm doing there is basically I've got a few button elements and I've added a few event listeners on the click. It just sends the play method, it sends the pause method, and every time the time updates, it just writes the current time in here, updates using the slider here, updates the actual volume of it. So fairly straightforward stuff to basically, if you imagine you have a website, you want to provide video, but the boss says, right, but the video player itself needs to be in line with our branding, our beautiful kind of horrible colors, font choices and everything else. I want that to look exactly like the same as the rest of the website. Before, you'd have to do it in Flash, you'd have to build your own little player, which is not complicated, but it just adds extra steps of work. Here, you can basically just use the tools that you already know, hopefully, a bit of HTML, a bit of CSS, a bit of JavaScript, and actually create your own styled controls.
Is that native slider control?
Sorry?
That's a native slider control.
That is a native slider control. Very good. I'm showing off now my wizard design skills here. So using exactly the same code that I had before, but just actually firing up Photoshop for a second, I actually created my own little controls here. Again, button elements, using a web font to actually show the time in some kind of more standard format. Again, the native slider here to change the volume and everything else. My machine is absolutely dying when I play video, but that's alright. It dies even more when I try and play Flash. And using all the bells and whistles of, there's a bit of CSS transitions here, I'm changing the opacity, all while the video is playing. And it's fairly straightforward. Again, if we looked at the source, there's a lot of really, really bad JavaScript on my part that could probably be optimized. But I'm actually doing a few simple things, like I'm actually generating that markup for the custom controls myself, so that if a browser doesn't have JavaScript enabled, it will just revert back to using the native controls that the browser gives, etc. And I'm checking also, is there actually support for video in the browser? Otherwise, don't even bother creating all those elements. And all that stuff, basically, yes, you need to know JavaScript, but you can just leverage, and I'm going to use that word, lovely, leverage the knowledge that you have of JavaScript without having to kind of dive into the Flash kind of editing environment and creating new things. Also, because of the time update stuff that I mentioned before, quite an interesting example, there is currently work going on in the HTML5 working group, or the WG working group, on adding new features to basically video itself. It's not going to make it to HTML5 as we know it, but HTML next, or whatever they want to call it, basically the continuous evolution of the HTML standard. And one of the things that a lot of people want to add to the video element is also the ability to define subtitle tracks. Here's a basic implementation. I'm not going to jump into it, but the interesting part of it is that it takes advantage of this time update event that fires. There's a separate file that has the various bits of text, and basically JavaScript just listens out every time the time gets updated. When it falls within a certain range, show that particular text, and again, show that text as just standard HTML, so it just pops it up with a bit of shadow underneath it. Hopefully this will play. Yeah, there we go. So the audio is in Chinese, so I'll spare you that. But basically, as I said, the actual text that shows underneath, that's just held in a separate file, loaded in with JavaScript, and there's timestamps for every single bit of text, and it just basically compares every time the time update fires, is the time within that range? If so, show that bit of text. Hopefully this stuff will happen natively in the browser. Once it's been fully spec'd out, it's a completely separate specification, separate of HTML5 core, called WebSRT. But this is already a good case of saying, okay, it's not there yet. The technology, the spec isn't advanced enough yet. The technology in the browsers doesn't do it natively. But using just the simple events that already are given, once you start popping in, say, video elements, you can start hacking around this stuff and build new and interesting things. One demo I forgot to show you is, because, again, video is a native element, and it's got these various attributes like source. Who remembers like things like image galleries, where you kind of press, you've got an image, you press one of the images, and then basically all you're doing behind the scenes is swapping out the source to kind of show different images. Well, exactly the same approach now works with a bit of JavaScript with video as well. So all I'm doing here is, it's a video element here, it starts off with nothing, and I can just simply, by pressing the buttons here, it swaps out the source of that video element itself, and it starts playing the other videos. So all fairly straightforward stuff that we used to do with things like images. There's hundreds of scripts on like DHTML stuff. You can all repurpose that crazy knowledge and apply that to video as well. Audio playlists, all of that sort of stuff, fairly straightforward to do, just with a few, with a few, that's not a CSS3 transition. There we go. Right. So I've been yapping on for about 35 minutes about video. What about audio? Well, audio, strangely enough, is exactly the same as video in most parts, because they're both HTML media elements in general. All of the methods that I talked about, play, pause, current time, you know, the attributes that you can get out, the events that get fired, are all there as well. There's a simple way of embedding audio with a single source, like before. You can say audio tag, you can say controls, autoplay, you point it to the file, you can have fallback content here in the middle, or you can provide separate sources, because as with video, you also got the same kind of debacle about what formats, what codecs are supported on the audio side. So you got MP3, again, it's ubiquitous, but there are royalties involved with it. Ogg Vorbis, which is the open source, and it's actually quite good. And then, strange enough, there's some implementations, for instance in Opera, that also support native WAV playback. I wouldn't want to put WAVs on my website, but you know, if you do, why not? Quick demo of that, and it's going to be silent movie version of the demo. Hang on, because I can't be bothered to hook up the audio. But just to show you how it looks exactly the same. So if I just drop in an audio element, Opera itself, with controls, Opera will show me these controls. The interesting thing is, with video, if you don't specify that you want controls, obviously you'll still get something on the page. You'll get the actual video, just that there won't be any controls showing up when you move over with the mouse or if you get there with the keyboard. Audio is a little bit different. So audio doesn't have width and height, so you can't actually say I want the that control to be that wide. You can use CSS to do that, but it's a little bit hacky, not supported in every browser. But basically audio is a kind of a dimensionless kind of hint to the browser. When you do controls, the browser will pop up something. If you do it without controls, if I press the right button, the audio element itself doesn't actually feature at all. It doesn't take up any space, so without controls it doesn't appear anywhere on your web page. But you can still get it if you do, say, document get element by ID or whatever, and you can still fire methods to it, and then you can just basically have the audio elements living somewhere in your DOM, not visible, and then you can start firing events to it. So if we had audio, you can have, this is just a button, and it fires off the Wilhelm screen in the background. Obviously you can do really annoying things with that, which will better humanity, like back in the Flash days, have like a little clicking noise every time you move over a link, or you know, annoying things like that. You can use it to basically put sound in your pages. There won't be anything on the page itself, you're just using the audio element in your DOM basically as a playback engine. Cute things that you can do, again, because there are the methods, there are the events that are being fired. There is actually a loop attribute both for video and audio. So in theory, if you've got a seamless kind of bit of audio, for instance, or a seamless bit of video, you can have it, you can set the loop attribute, and then when the user starts playing it, it will just keep looping seamlessly and it will be beautiful. Again, unfortunately at the moment, in I think pretty much all browsers, there is no kind of seamless playback. They all have a little bit of latency, a little bit of a gap between every loop. So again, if we had audio, I'll send out the links to these so you can have a play in your own time. This is set to loop, but it doesn't. Well, basically, it goes to the end, and then there's like a 10 millisecond whatever gap, and then it starts again, which is noticeable if you've got like a seamless audio loop that you want to do. Here was one of my attempts with a little bit of scripting, because the audio element, like the video element, can fire off an event when it's ended. I'm actually, you'll see that it's all watch the paint dry. When it gets to the end, it fires off the ended, and then I just use JavaScript to fire the next one. That was kind of my in-between kind of solution at the moment. Completely hacky, it doesn't work in all browsers because they've all got slightly different latencies depending on what format you're using, how powerful your machine is, etc. But basically this shows you that with just a bit of JavaScript, and once you see the actual file, you can have a look at the absolutely trivial bit of JS that I've got. You can just basically keep firing events, listening out for events, restarting it, and as a last demo, again, it would be better with sound. I've got a little wind chime thing, which usually ends up killing this browser on this machine, which is basically I'll just put in 5 audio elements with different sounds, so you just got to imagine it now. And they're just firing at random. Again, fairly straightforward to do. You can really piss off your people when they come to your website. Great stuff. A silent movie version of that. So why are we bothering with all of this stuff? You know, it worked before. We had audio and video in web pages for ages. Well, one of the things, and particularly now, a lot of designers seem to have realised that maybe Flash wasn't the best solution. And they got their shiny new iDevices and they said, oh, hang on, this doesn't actually play Flash. So there's a bit of the Stockholm syndrome of iDevice users that said, oh well, we never liked Flash anyway. But a lot of devices, mobile devices particularly, started to come out with HTML5 audio and video support. Because plugins are not ubiquitous. I mean, I'd like to see a mobile phone, well actually I wouldn't like to see a mobile phone with Silverlight support on it. Well, I think Windows Phone 7 is coming out soon, so that'll be good, or it's already out. So what that brings us is kind of avoiding these sorts of issues where you get to web pages that traditionally have loads of Flash, usually for content delivery of things like, generic things like video and audio. They don't work on iDevices. So that's why at the moment all the designers are creaming themselves over the fact that you can now do video and audio in the browser. But it's a good thing in terms of actually having an open standard, so there are kind of advantages to it. Absolutely. Is it all safe to use? So all the little things, should I start bothering as a developer to start using HTML5 video and audio in my site? Is it not a little bit too soon? It is safe, but first of all, don't do browser sniffing, and I love this slide. There are a few approaches to using kind of new technologies like HTML5. Browser sniffing is probably not the best way of doing it. We saw a fairly high profile example of Safari throwing us back to the days of this page best viewed in IE. Let's try and avoid that particular thing, because you can do feature detection. As you know, as a good developer, you should know that if you're using a new feature, particularly now that it's got all the JavaScript kind of implementations, it takes 2 minutes to actually test for all these new features, video, audio, also Canvas, all the other things that we heard about before, app caching and everything else. There are ways of testing, does the browser support this? Simple ways of just testing, you create an element and then check if a method is available, so CanPlayType, which we'll see in a second, or audio. You can test for particular codecs, which is what I'm using in the example I showed before, where it's swapping video sources out, because I want to also swap them out in a way that if I'm on Safari, I'm swapping it out with MP4 versions. If I'm on other browsers, I'm swapping out WebM versions. You can test exactly, does the browser support video? Yes. Does it actually support video WebM with this particular codec? Yes. That sort of thing. So you can really start kind of working your way around. Interestingly enough, CanPlayType, which is the method, has some interesting return values. So if you ask the browser, can you play this? It will either say probably, maybe, or says nothing.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Can we...
Probably, maybe.
We've only got so much video, can we save it for after? We've got about 4 minutes video.
Okay, so I'm halfway through. Yeah. And yes, it's very cryptic stuff, but there's some good resources out there. Mark Pilgrim's, is it Mark? Yeah, I think it is Mark. Dive into HTML5. Basically feature detection, the no bullshit guide to detecting everything. They all pretty much follow the same kind of way of, you create something that's not in the page itself, you test if it has certain methods. And you know, it's nothing new. It's progressive enhancement, graceful degradation, all the stuff that we should be doing anyway if we're good designers and developers. And there are ready-made shims or shifts. There's kind of 2 camps to that. If you actually want to start using, say, HTML5 video, but you don't want to bother with having to even think about IE6 users, there's ready-made scripts and stuff that kind of handle that for you and add kind of the flash around it and everything else. So for the absolutely lazy, there's already a battle at the moment of nice pre-packaged kind of say HTML5 video and audio players. Sublime Video is one example. Basically just grab this, stick the script on your page, and you can start using it, and it will do all the nice fallback and the video for everybody stuff, and build its own kind of little interface so it'll look exactly the same, stylable as well. Video.js is another one. There's a huge number of these. So all of that, I mean, there's the hype still going on at the moment of HTML5 as the flash killer. Examples like video and audio. That's a clear case of you don't need Flash anymore. It's going to kill it. It's going to replace it. I think as a good developer, the question really shouldn't be, is it HTML5 a replacement for Flash? The ecosystem is quite large. There are still users on older browsers. Again, we've seen things like big corporates and government, they won't change from IE6 for quite a while, as much as we will them to do it. So let's stop this whole dichotomy of one versus the other, black and white, HTML5 replacing Flash. But really what I'm excited about as a developer is that for the first time I've actually got a choice. If I want to do something like video or audio, or as we haven't seen, like things like Canvas and things like that, I've actually got different options now, different technologies, and I can have a reasoned discussion with other programmers, other developers, or the boss saying, okay, what's your target audience, what kind of technology are they likely to have on their machines, and it's not always like, well, it has to be Flash or nothing else. I can start weighing options up. I wouldn't be surprised if Flash still hangs around for a lot of these things for many years to come. Wish it all the best, but as I said, now as a developer I can have a reasoned discussion about which technology will fit that particular job or project. And with that, thank you very much.